Something I've been itching to try on the BSA is this, which is a PES oil rocker feed mod. I've had this for ages, even since before I got the bike actually, and I've just never got around to having a go with it. It's intended to improve the oil feed to the rockers. The standard feed, of course, is on the return pipe from the scavenge pump back to the tank. So there's a T-piece underneath the engine, which just takes that low pressure feed and diverts some of it to the rocker shafts. So there's a pipe here, which is rubber, joins up with a metal pipe, which goes down to the rocker feeds on the standard arrangement. This mod essentially takes oil from the output from the pump on the pressure side and feeds that to the rockers. So you just take off the old system and fit these two on the other side of the engine. So this one just goes into the front. The B50 has this port here, which is just got a plug in it normally. So before I put this cover back on, I'm just going to take this plug out, which is on the end of the passageway that leads from the end feed that I've been messing around with, and the ball non-return valve here. This passageway was for the oil's pressure switch, or even a gauge if anybody chose to fit one. But I guess there's a chance that some stuff might have got up this blind hole with this plug in the end. So I just take the plug out and flush it out and replace it before I put this back on the bike. This one, so you could actually put an oil pressure gauge on it, I guess. But again, there'd be not much point because it's a roller bearing. But this mod replaces that plug and takes the oil feed. And I think this is supposed to go around the top. It's supposed to go sort of behind the exhaust and round over the top. Could go a number of ways, but that seems to be the one that's recommended by PES themselves. So I was getting a higher pressure, more positive feed to the rockers. So having looked online, there are some comments I've seen where I think this approach floods the rocker box, so it causes a problem with say too much oil up here in the top end, and people in response to that have fitted orifices to these sort of arrangements just to restrict the flow. I'm not sure whether this PES version has such a thing in it. I'm going to assume it does, or at least they've worked things out so that it works straight as it is rather than having to modify it further. So yeah, I'll give it a try. One of the beauties of the B50 is that BSA finally put an end feed, or end oil feed on the crankshaft rather than going up through the bearing as they did on previous years. I know the A65, for instance, SRM will modify that to an end feed crank, which is what I had on the one I had a few years ago, because they were notorious for failing, the bottom end's failing. If there's too much end float, then you could create a problem. And the competition machines, they converted them to end feed, which is what SRM do nowadays. But finally, on this motor, BSA finally fitted an end feed crank from the factory. Anyway, I'll clean up this area around here and get the plug out, and we'll go from there. That was pretty tight. Need to make sure I don't lose this plug. I'll put it in a bag and keep it with the other BSA bits. There we go. So with the plug out, if I turn the engine over, take the spark plug out, should see some oil through here, I assume. There we go. Took a surprisingly long time, but yeah, here we go, that's oil. Reasonably clean. Okay, so that is good. So this PES thing has obviously a banjo fitting, 2 copper washers, and there's a Doughty washer on the end with the rubber seal on the inside. So that's quite nice. So the PES diagram shows this going around this way. So I'll leave that loose for now. Get the rocker side on first, and I can work out where to position this rigid banjo connection. Get the acorn nuts off this rocker spindle. So these new washers. I'll get this old thing off as well. But this goes down here, I assume. So here's the original rocker feed. There's some rubber hose there onto a steel tube. I'm going to leave this rubber hose in place. So for now, at least, I'll put a bung in up here in the end of the rubber tube. So I won't mess about underneath the engine for now. So I'll just block it off here and see how it goes. If it becomes a permanent feature, this new arrangement, then I'll think again and maybe modify something down here. This way I can reverse it pretty easily if I need to. Okay, so there's the original feed. It's pretty well comprehensively bent because it's seen some action over the years, people dismantling the engine and reassembling it, but yeah, again I'll save that obviously in case I do want to revert back to the original. This original oil pipe is, it turns out, just under 5mm, depending on how you measure it. Yeah, 4.89. But I found a piece of, no idea what this is, but it's aluminium rod, anodized. I've obviously cut it and saved it from something, and that's pretty much exactly the same. Maybe slightly smaller. But I'm going to use that in this old feed pipe. Yeah, it's quite a nice bit in there. Got a stainless clamp, so I just cut off a piece of this and use that and the clamp to block off this ordinary original oil feed. So I've got a piece of this aluminium rod, put a bend in it just to make it easier to get out, so I can twist it out rather than try to pull on a straight piece of rod. So a stainless steel clip, which I hope is the right size. It should be 9 to 11 millimeters, which is right for this. Right, clip on first, then this little rod. Very little pressure on this because it's just a return to the tank, so it's completely open at the top end. So fairly minimal pressure. Right, I don't think that's going anywhere, so I will leave that where it is. Meanwhile, if I keep kicking over the engine, I can get oil up and coming out the rockers on the other side. Okay, the oil is coming out this side. Just nip the acorn nut back on this side. and then confirm that the oil gets to this other rocker shaft. Okay, so there's oil going to this side as well. So that's good. It's a shame this isn't quite even. I don't want this to knock on this stud, but it'd be nice if that was an even curve. Oh well. That'll do. Shouldn't need to be ultra tight, just enough to nip up the copper washers. Plug back in. But the other advantage of this arrangement is that the oil doesn't bypass the filter. With the old feed, so it splits underneath the engine, and most of it comes back up to the tank, but some of it comes up to the rockers. But if it goes to the rockers, it bypasses the filter that I've installed. Whereas this way, everything that comes through the scavenge pump can only go through the filter. So it's probably a minor benefit, but it is a benefit, I think. Right, we'll see how that works, whether it is oil tight for one thing, but also whether it improves the oiling of the rocker gear. So pouring with rain today, but it's going to start it up, make sure nothing leaks. Both these off, I think, and check out what's going on. So yeah, obviously not stealing on this one. Just take them both off and see how we go from there. Interestingly, this is not a SAE imperial size. It's must be some sort of strange pipe fitting type size, because it's this 15mm socket fits it much better than any of the imperial sockets I've got. At least oil is getting up here. So if anything, I guess there's probably too much oil, but we'll see. I'm also quite pleased with the way it started. It started first time. So these two copper washers have come off with the nuts. So this one was okay. This one seemed to be the problem. And that's stuck on there. That's interesting. I wonder if it's hitting this casting. Could be, couldn't it? That seems to be bound on there. There we go. Definitely sort of wedged on. Canted over at an angle. So I wonder if this is not sitting into this seat far enough and just being held off the washer by the banjo fitting. Doesn't look to be the case. Oh, maybe it is. I think perhaps this pipe here, and again it's canted over at an angle again. That's it. I think the problem is there isn't sufficient gap. If I can see it now, there's a witness mark there, look. And indeed there. So this banjo fitting is hitting the casting, which is holding it off, sealing onto the washer. So that's not very good, is it? So it needs a little spacer on there, really, or some extra washers. I've still got the old washers. I guess I could put a stack of them on, but it seems a bit of a crude way of doing it. But there's definitely a witness mark there. I don't know if you can see it. There's a distinct indent there and there. So this pipe is pressing on the casting, and the same there as well. So this pipe here is pressing on there. So yeah, it's being held off the washer. That's bad PES. So not a straight bolt on. So quite disappointing, really. Right, so I thought about putting a spacer to bring the banjo off the casting, but of course realise now that the oil hole into the rocker shaft is there, and also if I were to put a spacer that big in it, it would not leave enough thread for the nut, the acorn nut. So I think I'm going to have to take some metal off the casting. So I can see the witness marks. I think if I can just use a Dremel to get a bit of material off there, that should be okay. Okay, so I've got a carbide burr in the Dremel, and this seems to be working pretty well. I can just create a bit of relief down to here. I think the banjo fitting should be okay. Okay, so the tape has obviously kept the ganj out of the and swarf out of the rocker shaft, and I think that's enough relief. It's gone well below the witness marks on the that were left on the casting by the banjo. So I think that might be enough. Okay, let's put this back on. See if it snugs up properly there. Okay, now this is touching the stud, so maybe I need to move or take some more material off slightly clockwise of where I have done already. So let's just mark this so I know what I'm taking off. Right, let's try that. It's the washer again. Right, so that's back on again. I think that's tightened up properly now. The relief behind these two stubs on the banjo has let it sit against the casting properly, and there's a gap there, so it's not going to fret against the stud. This angle is slightly disappointing. It's a shame it doesn't fall into a nice curve, but I think that's okay. Right, let's try it again. oil tight. So all done. I think it's all back together and not leaking any longer. So yeah, interesting. I mean, it's by no means essential. I'm not really sure there's any real benefit in my situation, but anyway, interesting to try. So I mean, it's very straightforward to fit. I mean, putting this in was dead easy. The big issue for me was the rocker box and having to cut some metal off the rocker box to let the banjo on the front rocker shaft fit properly. So that's a bit of a downer. That was not mentioned by PES in any of the paperwork I've got, although I've actually got a lot. But all I've got is just a photograph, basically. Anyway, um, yeah. So the only other advantage is that the all the oil on its return to the tank, the frame tank, will go through the filter now, which I said didn't before. So that's a minor benefit, I would say. So anyway, we'll try it for a few months, if not longer, and see how it goes. Thanks for watching.